You going to start the introductions?
It's in progress. Hi, good morning, Marie. Oh,
Hi, everybody. How's it going? We're
we I I'm
back.
I'm looking forward to talking about it. I love how we've been going back and forth with the value of this, right? I think it's really cool. So, this week's blog is how we wrote our trauma. We thought we'd get a little more personal about what it took for us to write our story about trauma. The point is not to write about it. The point is to gain a certain measure of freedom from it so that it's not running your life, you're running your life at choice rather than at the effect of trauma. That's kind of the whole thing. And we really want this conversation about our trauma to be raised so that it's not something that exists as something we shouldn't be talking about, but something that we should be talking about, right?
In other words, it shouldn't exist in the shadows. It
Yes.
should be spoken about so that we can raise awareness and shed the light on it and change it and morph it into something that doesn't happen the way it does right now.
Yeah, I agree completely. I was having a conversation with somebody who's in the community association around where we live. It was about signing a thing that we had to sign and blah, blah, blah. And she said, so what do you do? And so I told her about our book and our movement, and I gave her our card. She wanted to know more about it. And when I told her that one of our goals is to raise the conversation to one where it's just a natural conversation, she started talking about her sister-in-law who tried to commit suicide because she
Uh,
had been abused and she'd been assaulted and she didn't know how to talk about it. And I tell you, Marie, I hear that from people about other people way too frequently. The power that this conversation has is dangerous. I mean, and we wrote a blog about the dangerous subversion of this conversation. So
but
it's,
how much more dangerous to try to hold it inside for a
that's what
lifetime?
I'm saying. That's the danger, is keeping it inside. You know, it, we can't ignore that power, I think, in the work that we do, Marie, that it is so powerful that somebody's sister-in-law nearly committed suicide because of it. And she couldn't talk about it.
Well, let me ask you this, Janet. Why do you think you were reticent to write about your trauma in the first place? And have you had other traumas?
Well, I was reticent because I held it as something that was resolved. And I didn't recognize that it was unresolved. I didn't recognize the
Yeah.
machinery that was at play and that was really making my choices for me. I mean, and this is when I was in my third marriage. So that tells you something. I could not be what I wasn't, and it was a tough thing. So I was reticent to write about it because I knew that I'd have to share it because I was in a writing class, and I just didn't want to bring it up because there'd be questions and I'd have to talk about it, right? So
Right,
that's how
right.
it lived for me. And yeah, I had many microaggressive acts played out upon me throughout my working life. That's why I think it's so important for us to have a you know, a chapter in our next book about what happens in the workplace because it's horrendous. And
I think that could fill a book all on its
God, I know
own.
it's so horrendous. And the one of the reasons I never talked about that or wrote about that is the what happens when you do. I mean, you could get in all kinds of
Right.
trouble, right? Or not be believed, or be turned into um, have being loose and I don't know some jury or some uh, lawyer or some man will say, well, it's your fault because you know you
Yeah, or otherwise they just quietly ostracize you as the outsider and and keep you separate and apart and until you
yeah,
finally leave.
right,
Yeah.
but because the the history of trials for rape are that the defense turns the victim into the perpetrator because of the way she talks or the way she
Yes.
looks, or that she slept with someone before or she slept with five someones before. She becomes the problem and you can't trust her, right?
Right.
Because their guy is he's a businessman, right? And everybody should listen to
Right.
the
But
businessman.
again, going back to talking about it, if we talked about it more often, maybe, lawyers wouldn't be able to do that, throw the credibility of the victim uh, under the bus like that. It would be harder to do.
Yeah, it would be, I think if it becomes an issue that is raised to the level where people who have power talk about it. We can talk about it, but, you know, the 20, 30, 40, 50 people that watch our video all agree, right? But it's not the lawyer standing in the courtroom or the politician.
Well, I
Maybe,
think if it becomes more common and heard more often,
yeah.
that has a power as well. That has a great power.
Well, I think it's important that we remember um, that if we do start if our movement grows, and I think that's important for anybody who sees this, is to become part of the movement. And of course, the way we do it is for you to sign up for the newsletter so that you find out what we're writing about, that you read the blogs and tell us what your opinions are. We've gotten some really interesting comments on our blogs from people who feel that a subject is particularly important, and that lets us know we should probably write about it again. But I think that we share with men and women across the country, which is pretty great, that we understand each other and we hold each other up. And I just happen to think that's an important part of this.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a
So
wonderful part of it.
since you wrote about yours, has anything changed?
Yes, yes, since I wrote about mine and since we wrote our first book, a lot has changed because I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot of things that I didn't know before, and they weren't huge monumental things, but they were the small detail things. And I've met so many people through this. So yes, things have changed. Like I think I said in my last blog, I really feel confident now when I say that there is no trauma that is too small. There is there's no moment of sexual abuse that is too small for healing or too small to talk about or too small to be made right.
Yeah,
Um,
because and I've heard people talk about the small traumas, the the pat on the butt, the
right,
remember you told the story about having your child in your arms and you went to the rug cleaner. Remember
right,
that one?
right.
Yeah,
Yes.
and he wanted to kiss you. He moved in to kiss you, and you're
He
standing there
did
with your
kiss me, but
child.
he wound up by kissing me on the side of my neck or something like
Ah,
that. It's just like it was so weird. And yeah, and I mean, I don't really think I was traumatized by that, but it was unwanted attention. And I was carrying a baby. How was I going to push him away or defend myself? It was just
exactly.
very odd.
And people call it microaggressions, but that's
Yeah.
is going to stay with you until you're 99 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry for me taking a sip. It gets so dry here. So I think that lifting everybody up who contributes to the movement, and I mean contributes their time and their reading and their writing to the movement, people who submit to the book. Um, our next book is going to be so cool. It's called Fierce, Brave, and Loud. And I'm really excited about that. We're starting to talk about our chapters and we're starting to talk about how it's important for everyone who writes in this book to stand up with others, because if we're in the standing position, we can support each other. If we're in the prone position because we're so weak we can't, that's not where change is going to happen. It's going to happen when we all stand up. And I am very, very happy to hear from men and women who have submitted their work to our books, who are willing to take that stand.
Absolutely. You're
I think
right,
it's,
Janet.
I think it's, I think we may not know in the moment how much of a difference we're making, but I'm committed to continuing on so that we do make a difference, whether we know it or not, and be really,
Let's blow the lid off this thing. You
yeah,
know, we've got to do it. We've got to bring it out into the light and we will get
exactly,
there. Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. We're here for you. That's
Yeah,
what this is all about.
yep. So it's important to, if you're interested, just put your email in the newsletter on our website, and you'll hear what we're working on. You'll see what we're talking about. Sometimes it sounds like we're talking about the same thing over and over again, but it's really like a different take on a particular area, because this business of writing your trauma is something that's what we're all about.
mpjp at oursilentvoice.com. Send us a little
Yes.
email. Tell us what you'd like us to talk about next time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Give us feedback, right?
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Bye.